The 80s was a great time to grow up. We didn't have the internet or cell phones, but we had big hair and Miami Vice. In this video, I'm going to share some of the differences of what it was like playing basketball in the 80s versus today, and hopefully I won't turn into a grumpy old man and be all bitter about the current generation.
I'm a grumpy old man. I don't like everything the way it is now compared to the way it used to be.
Back in the day when I was in high school, we had a really good team. We had a lot of good athletes that liked to hoop it up, some good shooters, and we really enjoyed playing ball together. One of my favorite memories was going on road trips to away games when we traveled together as a team. Okay, I may not be that old, but I do remember playing in this building a basketball game up on the 3rd floor in the winter. They had 2 wood-burning stoves at each end. The floor was totally dead. Wherever you'd bounce it, it would hardly bounce back up. It felt like you were playing in a gym like this. Okay, let's get back on topic now. We're going to talk about 6 differences between basketball in the 80s versus today. The first one is technology. Now you might be wondering, what does technology have to do with basketball? Just the fact that it can be challenging sometimes to show proof that I played basketball. If it's not for a couple of newspaper articles or yearbook picture, some random photos, I don't have much evidence to show my kids or any highlights from back then. These days, every single person on the team, whether they ride the bench or get a lot of playing time, they all got a nice highlight tape because everything's being recorded and filmed and edited. So it is harder to see good highlights then. So my heart goes out to all the older legends when you see there's 70s and 80s highlights and it's all blurry with 6 pixels compared to the nice 4K video that all the current stars get. Difference number 2, one of the obvious elephants in the room we need to address, and that's short shorts. Let me just first say, we didn't know better back then. It wasn't our fault. That was the normal. Everyone wore short shorts. Speaking of bad fashion options, back then, they had not invented compression shorts yet, so everyone wore jock straps. For those of you of the younger generation, just be grateful you've got nice Under Armour and stuff to play in. I have one short message for you about this. So back then, everyone played with short shorts. It was the norm. It's kind of embarrassing when you look at the pictures. I do have an extra embarrassing situation, though, when once I was playing in an all-star game, I was the last one to arrive on our team and got the last pick of uniforms, and all they had was the smallest pair of shorts, but no one would switch with me. So I got to wear a Speedo for an all-star game. That was fun. Thankfully, shortly after this, Michael Jordan, Karl Malone, and Iverson brought the big baggy circus pant shorts into style, and that's more the norm these days. The third area would be shoes. Back then, Converse was the go-to brand when it comes to your shoes. Dr. J. Worm, Magic, Bird, Isaiah, McHale. First, I wore Weapons all during high school. I loved them. It wasn't until like the mid-'80s when Jordan broke in with his Air Jordans. And it's interesting these days, you look at almost every other player, it seems to have their own shoe design or brand. And so that's been another big change over the years, is just the shoe availability. The fourth item would be the three-point shot. Now, the three-point shot had been around for a while, but it was still fairly new compared to today, and it wasn't nearly the thing it has become. Back then, only the guards would shoot three-pointers. I was 6'2". I played forward and center. We had a short team. And I only shot 1 3-pointer my entire high school career, and that was like a last-second shot from half court right before the end of the first half. If I would have taken a 3-pointer back then, I would have been benched so fast. So that's another big change we see today, that most of the bigs can shoot the 3, whereas in the 80s, they were told you to stay in the paint and post up. The fifth difference would be training methods. Back then, pretty much everything we did for basketball was there in the gym on the court. The coaches didn't want you lifting weights because they thought that would throw off your shot, especially during the season. Occasionally we do like some plyo jumps on the bench or wall sits, but 99% of everything we did was there on the court in the gym. Whereas today you look at people that do cross training off season, resistance training. They do lots of other different training methodologies that can help them be a better athlete and stay in shape year round. And the sixth and final one is that there was a more physical style of play back then. There was a lot more posting up in the paint, a lot more aggressive play. I'm sure you've seen these classic highlights of 80s players going at it against each other. Some of these fouls, they would have been ejected from the league for the season by today's standards. Now, I'm not saying today's players are soft, but when you look at some of the highlights, when you see all the flopping, when you see these ticky-tack fouls that are being called and people getting technicals and ejections for just looking at someone the wrong way, you have to admit the game has changed in some ways. Now, I'm not trying to bash modern-day players. I actually think they're probably better skilled, better trained than most athletes were 40 years ago, and they've made huge developments, especially when it comes to things like dunking. That sport has just taken off insane. We couldn't even imagine the stuff people do today. So all this reminiscing and talking about old school basketball has gotten me excited to go shoot some hoops. So I'm going to head out, but I'll see you on next week's video.
Push the button.
Do it.